Hey, I'm Sarah White. I'm really excited to be up here and talk to these lovelies, plus DeVon, who's on his way up, about being sustainable and self-preservation while working out here as creatives in a really crazy world. Because right now, it's really apparent that we're in a really complicated time. And within our communities, it's really intense. What you're seeing in the world is really intense. And then also just within your brain, you know, as a creative person or as an entrepreneur or just as a being, having to balance that out is very challenging. So I'm excited to talk to these lovely people. Why don't you each go and like really briefly just say who you are and what you do?
Sure.
Starting with you, Andrea.
I'm Andrea Swensson, and I work at 89.3 The Current. I'm a host of the local show, and I'm also a writer for the blog.
I'm Bob Gardner. I'm a husband, a dad, own a mid-sized commercial construction company, and a supporter of The Current.
Yes.
Aren't we all? I mean,
Right.
I'm Jenn Schaal. I'm a stand-up comedian and a fitness trainer at Solcana CrossFit.
DeVon Gray. I'm a composer, keyboardist, and performer in town. Play with really anyone that will have me.
I'll have you. Okay, cool. Let's jump in. First, let's talk about how you make decisions about what projects or work you're going to take on, and how do you stay focused on not overextending yourself, like committing to those decisions that you made. Anybody can jump in.
Okay, I'm not afraid to talk. I think when I'm looking at projects that are presented to me, there's a couple things I think about. One, how much are they going to pay me? That's, I think, as artists, we have to put value on the work that we do, and I think a lot of times we get asked to do a lot of things for free for promotion or like marketing opportunity, and like to me that's just kind of total bullshit, especially once you're at a point where you feel like you can decide if you want to continue to do something for free, making sure you put a value on what you do. Also, the way that the project makes you feel. Is it something that you're going to be proud of being a part of, or is it something that you're not? The people that are involved, what it's about, all of those things play a really big part for me. For a long time, I said yes to everything because you felt like you weren't in a position to say no to anything. And I think the minute that you realize that you do have a lot of value and worth, that is life-changing.
It used to be a lot easier. 10 years ago, it was good food, good music, or good money. If I had two of the three, I would say yes to a gig. But with each passing year, the list gets longer and longer, which is a good thing. That integrity piece sort of starts to, the voice gets louder in the back of the head, and you're saying, why am I agreeing to do this? Yes, you know, sometimes to stay fed, but if it's not feeding me on other levels, then I probably don't need to be there. I don't need to be a part of it.
So you feel like you use your intuition to kind of help to guide you with what you do and don't do?
Absolutely.
Even if it's a lot of money?
Even if it's a lot of money, so far.
What about you, Andrea?
I feel like I'm still in the process of figuring this out because in the last 2 years, in addition to working at The Current, I'm writing a book, which turns out a lot of time and effort. And I do freelance writing for other publications. I get asked for people to pick my brain on like a weekly basis.
Yeah.
So I feel like I've had to be a lot more selective about what I realistically can do. I can't go through a day where I, have a networking coffee, talk on a panel, write an article for The Current, go home and work in my book, and then have any kind of life after that. So it's just been learning how to say no and what my body and my brain can actually handle.
And Bob, you're also a parent.
Yeah.
So how do you do this?
Globally, for me, it's striking that balance. So I have 4 children who are 13, 12, 10, and 8. and my 5th baby just turned 6 in Gardner Builders. So 2 years apart, and so striking that balance of being able to come home, as we talked to Scott earlier about being able to play Legos or Uno with your daughter at night, you have to be able to say, enough's enough. Starting out the company 6 years ago, we said yes to a lot, but one of the things that we really did was focused on what was our core and what we stayed true to ourselves. And by staying true to yourself, you don't take on projects that are going to stretch you in areas where you feel uncomfortable. I like what you said in that, like, if it doesn't match with your integrity, or if there's somebody that wants you to do things that to abuse your staff, the folks that you work with. I've had many conversations with people that said, this is a marquee project, but you can take it back if that's the way you're going to treat my people.
Have any of you ever had like a breaking point where you weren't maybe listening to, a project came along or something that you knew didn't fit right with you, but you did it in any way, either for money or for experience, and then it bit you in the foot? Is there an example that
Or
comes to
somewhere
mind?
else.
Yeah, it bit you somewhere.
We have been in that 6 years that we've been in business, we have taken projects that didn't fit. We were shortlisted and we might have been the low bidder, and we found ourselves in a point where we're scrappy and we feel like we have to defend every move, where I'm all about collaboration and all about being surrounded by, we have trade partners, we have our design partners, and we have our, the rest of the people that help us do our work. And if we're being attacked, and where everybody is really rallying to try and do the work, and yet we're feeling like we're not being trusted, things can go bad quickly, and also then becomes a resource drain, and then you're not able to service your other clients. And so if you're really in a bad situation, and I don't care whether it's doing what you guys do or what we do, if you have to spend all of your focus on one client and you can't spread it out, then almost everything goes into like emergency mode.
I feel that personally. I feel like it's a challenge to balance a lot of things in general, but if one thing is off balance, there's no way that you can really like save the ship from sinking until you let go of something, And sometimes letting go means that you have to admit that something isn't working or that you're failing. And so we were talking about failure. What do you do when you're faced with failure to like keep your sanity? What do you do to protect yourself and keep going? Andrea.
I hit that point just recently. This year has just been really intense for a lot of different reasons, but because I was covering Prince so closely and working so extensively with him after his death, I just had a lot of requests for my time, and I just said yes to like everything, because why not? And I had a complete meltdown in August where like I was trying to explain to my husband why I was stressed out, and pretty soon I'm just like sobbing, and I'm like, I can't, don't you understand, and he's just looking at me like, whoa. And I just had to take a step back and say, like, I can't do everything, and if I do try to do everything, I'm missing deadlines, I'm not handing in like the quality of work that I want to be handing in. I'm just kind of scraping by, and that's no way that I want to, treat myself as a brand and as someone that, puts work out into the world. So I had to start learning how to do things like asking my husband to make me dinner, which like I had never even thought to do before. Simple stuff, day-to-day stuff. Could you handle laundry? Could you run this errand? And he's great, and he does it, and I just didn't even think to ask.
What about you, DeVon?
I'm still trying to think of a situation where I agreed to do something and it ended up biting me. I think I'm lucky that I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I had a very uncomfortable physical reaction to a gig a couple of years ago, maybe the beginning of last year. I had agreed months and months ahead of this gig to work with these artists that were being brought to town. It seemed like the right sort of fit. I had the skill set that they were looking for. Contracts had been worked out, but what I hadn't heard yet was any of the music. And so when I finally heard some of the music just a few weeks ahead of the concert, I reacted physically, and I'd never had that feeling in my life before. Wow. My body was really telling me, like, you can't participate in this. This is not for you. There was nothing offensive about the content. Probably, if I turned the music on right now, I'd probably enjoy it. But at that place, it could have been other things that were going on, and my focus was too split, and that was the extra piece of, that extra grain of rice that was going to tip the scale. And I had to back out, which meant that I had to burn a bridge with an organization that's been supportive, and they couldn't understand it. I don't know that they have the understanding or the capability of understanding. They just see, we have these dates, we have these things that we have to accomplish, and do your job. But I felt that I wasn't going to be able to bring 100% of myself to it, and if I can't do that, then I would be doing a disservice. But a year and a half later, I can't identify any sort of adverse anything. So a gig is a gig. A temporary situation is a temporary situation. You just have to do what you think is best at the time, because that's all you have.
Jen?
Yeah. All right. Well, I work a full-time job also. So working 8 to 10 hours a day at a place that sucks the soul out of you minute by minute by minute. And then having to shift, like in a leadership role, right, at the office, and then having to shift, take off those blinders and like go directly to whether it be open mic, writing, paid shows, paid gigs every weekend. That cycle over and over and over and over again, just thinking about it makes me kind of start to break out in hives. And so similar to Andrea, in December of 2014, I hit a breaking point, and I actually had a breakdown. And the whole thing. And what I learned in that situation, looking back, and things are much more wonderful now, is, well, first of all, you're going to figure out who your real friends are when you have a mental breakdown. That's just a reality. So the people that you bring into your life and surround yourself with, and I had this conversation with someone earlier today, is that the people who are in your community, whether it's as an artist or family or whatever, those don't have to be the only people. And I think it's really important that you surround yourself with people of all different various talents and walks of life, and there's like entrepreneurs or anything, because if the only people that are around you are the people who are doing the same thing as you, like that is, you get choked really quickly. And so that was a really great thing, even though it was a horrible thing to happen, because I realized that, and I realized that I needed to just slow it down, and I needed to find joy in life because I wasn't having it. And if you don't find joy in life, you're sure as shit not going to be funny on stage. And so, like, nobody wants to be like, oh, your life's so sad. Like, let's pay money to hear about that. That's great. I always wondered why people go see comedy on Valentine's. Like, don't do that, because that's just people talking about how sad their life is, and then you're there on a date. But whatever, that's a whole other thing. So I had to take a break. And that was hard, because like in the world of comedy or performance or writing, anything, like out of sight is out of mind, right? So like suddenly people aren't thinking of you to like participate in these shows or these gigs or bringing you along on stuff or offering you opportunities. But I needed to do that for myself in order to get back into a good mindset. And even now, what is it, like a year and a half, almost 2 years later, like I'm still not back to that yet. And I only choose to do the things that I want to do, and I don't go to open mics 4 nights a week because that's not good for anyone's mental health. You know, I want to spend time with people. Like it was like going to work and then going to work. Like there was no time for any friends, or like I was completely blocking out the people that I actually wanted to spend time with in order to spend time in a basement with really nice people, but not people I wanted to spend time with. And so I had to reevaluate all that stuff, and I somehow along the way like started competitive weightlifting and became like a trainer of other people and helping people see like value in just the space they take up, and like how much that has helped me help them, but then in my own life, kind of taking what they've given me. Oh, I keep hitting this mic. I'm used to holding a mic, so I feel like if I could just, okay, anyway. And I'm not gonna feel bad about that. And I think like in my community, in the comedy world, like there are a lot of people who wanna make you feel bad about stuff because you're competing for the same things. And that's can be like a really dark place to be. And I've realized like, I want to be happy for the things that my friends get for the hard work that they have. And when I start to not feel that way, I need to take a step back, because that's an ugly place to be. It's a natural place to be, but it's just not where I want to be. And so, like, I'm okay if this means like this is as far as I'm going to make it as a comedian. Like, cool, I'm good with that. I'm going to be okay with it. Thanks.
I'm going to put a date to mine as well. So we started in October of 2010. Almost October of 2013, we had transitioned to a new, we're about a year into a new controller. And I liken it to being on a road trip with a bunch of guys, and you know, your job is to make sure we don't run out of gas. And if we run out of gas in the middle of New Mexico where there's nothing going on, we're all going to be pretty pissed off. And we not only did we run out of gas, we owed money for a whole bunch of other gas that we got along the way. And so, fast forward, we were doing great. We were building great projects. We were, you know, an $18 million company, but we had lost $500,000. So it meant for 3 years, zero. So you have to go home and look at that home team and say, it's going to be cool, it's going to be okay. And you have to put the game face on at work and make sure nobody knows what's up, right? They know that something's up, but you still smile and you're like, hey, we hit a road bump, but we're going to go out there and we're going to still kill it. And the only way, and you touch on what you talked about, the only way you do that is surround yourself with people, really, really good people, and not people like you, people who have no vested interest in what you do, who have just great insights, and have great hearts and great sense of like what's important. If you listen to this morning's talk, they talked about being vulnerable, right? So being vulnerable to people who understand your situation just opens you up to become raw, but it also helps you release a lot of that stuff and helps you focus on, all right, we suck for right now, but man, we're awesome, right? So my mom always told me one thing forever, for sure: believe in yourself. And when you believe in yourself and you have that like solid core, there I'm doing your thing. When you have that, if you have that solid core and you can believe in yourself, like I've always had this, like throughout my life, when you fall down, you have to get back up and go. And the kids are laughing at you, you got to go, guess what? I'm still 3 steps ahead of you because I believe in myself. And so we went back to core, and I surrounded myself with really, really good folks, really good advisors. We stripped back. We lost a couple of really good team players on our team and got rid of a couple that weren't really good team players, and we shorted up, and we are like, it's unbelievable, our growth and our profitability and the love at our company. Like, the people are just amazing.
It makes me think about, so I'm kind of a person where, like, I started out with hip hop when there weren't a lot of women, especially in the city, especially black women named Sarah White, rapping about, like, social justice. Like, I just didn't fit in a mainstream world. And so I kind of developed this shell where it's like, no matter what comes at me, I can handle it. And then I can handle more, and I can handle your stuff too. Like, I got it all. And I've lived this way a long time. And then, like, Philando Castile, I think for me was like a tipping point where I was like, okay, I'm doing all this stuff, but then there's just so much pain, and there's so much to witness and also bring back to my daughters and explain to them that, like, it's cool, we got this, like, everything's fine. And my reaction was to go and start helping people, and I wasn't putting anything back into myself. And I basically just, like, floored it. Like, all of a sudden, I just couldn't carry anything anymore. And it forced me to really think about, like, new ways of being sustainable and really checking myself and balancing myself. So kind of think about, like, what do you guys do now in this world where things are the way they are to kind of deal with the heaviness, but also still create and create more work and keep a company running, or train other people how to be strong, or create symphonies.
I use an app called Headspace.
Oh, yes.
There's an
Pay
app
the
for that?
money, people,
What?
pay the money. It's so good.
It's
I
so
do too
good.
every night.
I don't know
Every
about
night.
this app.
So my therapist, I'm in therapy, has been
Who is it?
telling me to meditate for like 2 years, and I'm like, right. I meditate when I listen to music. You know, I was just like, I don't need that.
I work meditate.
Right. I'm meditating while I'm writing. It's cool. So just recently, after my most recent meltdown, I was like, something's got to change. I spend every waking minute that I'm not working just staring at Facebook, like scrolling like a Pavlovian dog, just like trying to get more. Like, I don't know what I want, but I never get it, and I feel horrible afterwards. And
not there,
I was like,
yeah.
I need to stop. I just need to like get off my devices. And so I went in the app store, and I found this app called Headspace, and it's guided through very, very basic tips on how to meditate. And it's only 10 minutes at a time, and you can do it any time of day. And I've done it in my car, in the parking ramp outside my job. I've done it we have like little crying rooms where you can go make like a private phone call, because we all work in cubes, so I've done it in there.
And his voice is amazing. It's like
yeah.
an Australian accent, so
Yes.
you can just listen to it.
It's
forever.
super calming,
Like, just
and he's
keep
like, it's
talking.
gonna be okay,
Yeah,
and like
totally.
let your worries drive by like a car on a highway, and I'm like, totally, and it just helps, and it's just like, for me, like, I'm so bad at prioritizing anything that has to do with my own sanity and health, and to just give myself 10 minutes, like, I can do that. I can give 10 minutes. So do that.
It's actually, there's 10 episodes that you can get for free. So like for a long time, I just listened to the same 10 over and over and over again. Like it does the job. And then I was like, you know what, I think, and they had a special of 99 cents a month for 3 months. So that's where I am now. But like after that, I think it gets a little more expensive, but
It's worth it.
It is worth it agreed.
So that's what you use as well?
I do, but also, like starting to set the basics, right? Like food and sleep. I think like thinking about eating food from a place of like nourishing your body instead of just like whatever shit you can find to putting in. That's, I think, a basic thing. And then also sleep, like making sure I can sleep enough, which I still don't, but a goal of getting like 8 hours a night, I think is really important. And for me, when I had the breakdown in December of 2014, my therapist, also in therapy, Andrea, she was like, think about how much worse, as bad as it was, think about how much worse this could have been if you weren't active, like if you didn't have activity, physical activity in your life. And I it's really scary to think about how much worse it could have been. And so physical activity for me is really important, whether that's like last night I took my dog for a walk 4 miles. Like just move, clear your head. Like that's physical activity for me is the way to get all the demons out of here. I can have like the shittiest day and want to like punch everyone in the face. And then like I go just show up at the gym or wherever you're going to be to just do something active. And like endorphins are a real thing, right? And like at the end of an hour, I'm like calling everyone I know, being like, oh my God, life is so great. I love you so much. like I can't tell you what that does. And maybe that's not the same for everyone, but I think if you, do some research on the healing effects of exercise, it's not about like getting skinny or like, because clearly, but like what it does for your brain, I just think alone is, I'll never stop speaking the value of that.
There's always a tune or some piece of musical fodder that's tumbling around up here in my mind, grapes. And it's only been the last couple of years that I've started to figure out how to sort of take control of my mind. So I had like a natural progression toward to yoga and then to meditation. And I've had friends chirping in my ears for years that they could just see it. They said, we can see that you need something, but I just didn't want to listen. Because it's fun to not listen.
Who wants to be told?
I've always been a walker. Any city I'm in, I want to use my feet and explore it. And I know that's always been a tool of creatives and composers, and you find so many answers when you're just out walking and trying to not think. That's when epiphanies happen. So I know now that self-preservation is something I'm going to have to study and something I'm going to have to practice every day for the rest of my life. And somehow the clouds have parted and the gates are open and I'm more creative and juicy now than I've ever been in my life. But at the same time, the world is crushing in on me because there's just so much nastiness. When I was a kid, I knew that I wanted to be a composer when I grew up because I wanted to be able to put my hands on things. I wanted to be able to shape these worlds. Again, I learned that from an early age from Prince. They talked about in the last panel about this world that he created. That's the gift of the composer, is to take a blank space, a space that's void of everything, sound and air pressure, and through the power of their own creativity to build something that other people can relate to. So yeah, when I was a kid, composer, that's all I knew. And life was light and it was a fine childhood. But as you become more aware of what's going on in the world and what's going on around you, that heaviness starts to weigh in. And all I knew in the back of my head was that I wanted to write a string quartet because string quartets are gorgeous. I wanted to do what Beethoven did and Mozart. Finally, the right opportunity came, commission, and I said, this is what I want to do, write a string quartet. Again, still just thinking about the music, not about all these other external things. But then when I actually sat there to try to foster this space to allow this piece to come, it was darkness because of these external things that I hadn't acknowledged or hadn't taken the time to understand. I didn't want it to be a Black Lives Matter string quartet, but it just happened that way. The world made it happen the way my understanding of the world. And I feel like I exercised some demons, found some questions, found some answers, and I recognize now that it's a gift, that I get to create something that's for me, but then I get to sort of release it and have other people have their own journeys and their own experiences with it. And been another sort of unexpected piece that's helped me to preserve myself, to preserve my sanity.
Do you want to add something to that?
I would. I think turmoil and things, tragedy and other things are innately human. And every one of us experiences some level of that throughout our lives. And then we all have the ability to deal with it the way that we deal with it. I think one of my gifts is the gift of positivity. From an early age, my parents were divorced when I was 7. And we lived in Alaska, and we all moved back to Colorado, and my dad stayed in Alaska. And I think from my perspective, you have those things throughout life. And I got dubbed as a kid throughout school as Bobby the daydreamer, right? He daydreams, he's really smart, but he should apply himself. And my mechanism for dealing with and staying positive was imagination and dreaming and thinking about possibilities. There's a book called Orbiting the Giant Hairball, which talks about creativity being squashed as a young child, and I never lost my creativity. That's my coping mechanism, and I always dream of big possibilities, and it took me until I was 41 to land on a real possibility, but I think that really is my mechanism for dealing with outside pressures and staying positive. And some people might call that a little Pollyanna-ish, but I think it's true. There's so much good in the world, even with so much bad. I mean, we have the polar opposites, but we are in balance, whether we want to believe it or not. We are, and it's just where you choose to be on that spectrum, and where you are at the time in your life, or where we are in the world at that point.
Well, oftentimes it's like where you choose to look as well, and that's kind of what got me out of that space of feeling overwhelmed as I started to give thanks, and I started to think about how beautiful all the people were in my life, and how when I would kind of cry out on Facebook, oh, my allies were like, yo, we got you. You don't have to hold all this. You've done all this work. We have you. And then I remembered even deeper, ancestors and people that were here before us that have built what we have. And it really inspired me to create more and kind of pour myself more into love, into making love, into eating really good foods. I love to cook. And all the things that make me smile, and sharing those with people that I love. And it's it bounces back. When you're talking about dreaming in the hairball book, whatever that was, it made me laugh. And I was just oh, I'm not that cold anymore. It brought me to my present state again, So let's just quickly, because we have to go to Q&A, talk about one thing you do to pour joy back into your life. It can be anything.
I think I would say cooking too. Yeah, I think there's probably nothing better for me than just having maybe 4 really close friends over and making way too much food and just making them eat it and drink a bunch of wine and
You're talking
just
my language. Yeah.
feel that connection.
Besides drinking craft beer, really good
Okay,
beer.
you guys are all on my level right now.
Just for me, it's being with my kids on an adventure, whether it's up at YMCA family camp, Camp du Nord up in Ely, or whether it's whether it's on some other adventure, or whether it's just hunkered down at home, playing Uno or watching my son Peter skateboard. By the way, I wrote earlier on this same topic on it's community versus competition. Yes. And if you've ever watched skateboarders skate, and you've watched, my son is that dichotomy. He plays football and he skateboards. He's really good at football. He's really good at skateboarding. But the difference between those two, everybody's talking you down in football. It's this big competition. And skateboard, everyone's vulnerable. Everyone has a chance, whether you're 47 or you're 12. You go hit a trick and everybody's high-fiving you. You miss a trick and everybody's like, hey man, you'll hit it the next time. You're good, And that to me is what the world should be about. I mean, so that also brings kind of clarity to my world. So I love doing that.
I love that.
Yeah, that's the world of weightlifting
Yeah.
also, which is awesome because especially being a woman in powerlifting, which is historically an all-male field. I will tell you, in Minnesota, we have the largest, the makeup of the USA Powerlifting Minnesota is 43% women, which is awesome. Yeah, it's really cool. I did a meet a couple months ago in July where it was actually all women, and that's never happened before. So it's really cool to see women who are stereotypically kept down in society, like pick up some real heavy shit and like not look pretty doing it. Like it's amazing. So I will agree with that community, but also I think for me, it's like taking a break, you know, unplugging. Like, Andrew, I'm sorry, but I don't listen to the radio in my car anymore because it's the only time I can have no talking. Like, that's amazing. And being able to just sort of sit back and enjoy what's happening right in front of your face instead of always powering forward, that to me allows me to like appreciate kind of what's happening around me, and I never had that before. So opening those doors has allowed me to experience a lot of other things. Like I got me a boyfriend, and you know, I mean, but I never had time for any of those things before. And so just to be able to like be in the moment and like enjoy what's happening, like that brings me a lot of joy.
I'm with you guys. I love to feed people. I love to cook. I love to cook organic, natural, healthy things.
Come to your house.
And I also love to sort of introduce people to things that they love that they don't know about. So that can be in cuisine, but that could also be in the arts or literature or nature.
It's crazy how simple it is sometimes. You know, we live in such a digital, complicated world, but it's like you're born with a love for things. You're born loving people and loving community, and we kind of like separate from that. It's time for Q&A because I see a Q&A right there. So yeah,
So organized.
if anyone has any questions.
Carl.
Hi, Andrea.
Hey.
As a fellow person who loves to feed people, and this is not a serious question, this is just a question for my own edification, what do you want to cook for people? What's your go-to thing to cook for people to make them feel better? And what do you go to make you feel better?
Is that a question for everybody? Yeah. Okay. I love cooking comfort food, which is probably not actually good for anybody. But I was raised in northern Minnesota, so if it's got cream of mushroom soup in it, it tastes good to me. No, but I've gotten really better lately about making like healthy food. Like, oh, you can just get like a piece of salmon and some asparagus and some potatoes and roast it, and that's like a meal, and you don't have to put cheese on it.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and it's amazing.
I cook breakfast. I'm like the king of breakfast, and so it doesn't matter what it is for breakfast, whether it's eggs with avocados and some tomatoes, or pancakes, or waffles, or grits. Like I love breakfast.
I missed lunch because I was talking. This is like killing me right now. I'm like, yes. I like to make savory oats. Like throw some like kind of Asian spices in there with like some shiitake and cremini mushrooms and a fried egg on top, and then I love to make buttermilk biscuits from scratch. I know how to make the fatties all organic.
Yeah.
So good.
Okay, then we're done with that now. Sorry. I'm supposed to be moderating. What do you guys like to cook?
I'm a simple cook. I've only taken up cooking in the last year or two, and savory oats are one of my favorite things. But I like to use egg whites instead of water when making it. It's great.
What?
I know.
Yeah, brunch. I love, so people can sleep in, show up when they want to. I mean, if you want food to be there, you better show up early. But, and there's drinking, which is social. That's what I mean. That social.
Anyone else have any questions for anyone up here about sustainability or all the things we talked about?
Food.
How did we get on food? They put me on this panel and I did that. Okay, so I have one more question
thank
then. Oh, go ahead.
My bad, Sarah. Okay,
Please.
so hi everybody.
AK Radio.
How are you? My name is Krista. I know the majority of you up here,
Yeah.
but I do want to say first and foremost, thank you for being so open and just vulnerable. I know that's been a theme that in my life has been really hard to come to terms with, but it really, just the energy that you all gave off was really wonderful. And without going too personal into my own life this past year, it has been one of the hardest years of my life, both as a creative and also as a working professional. And right now I'm at a place where I feel like I can go in these different directions, but I'm becoming much more in tune with myself. For those of you who spoke on just also mental health and working through breakdowns and getting to that point, was there something for you or someone or even a song or a film or something that helped you, whether it was an epiphany or just working through that moment that you were in, that helped you to take that next step forward? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
For me, I can say it was asking for help and admitting that I needed it. Whenever I felt overwhelmed, I would just be like, ask somebody to help you with something. Like, I'm almost like a person that would be carrying like 12 bags and at the same time writing a song and at the same time like emailing somebody. Like, I literally am like an octopus balancing things. And I'm like, wait, just ask somebody for help. Like, people want to help you. And that's what I say in my head anytime I need to like push myself into a safer space.
I'm still not great at asking for help.
Oh, I don't ever ask for help. I'm just saying that's what my goal is. That's what I'm trying to do.
But I did somehow force myself to flip internally. I just started talking to people more. I wanted to, like, if I ask you how you're doing, like, I
You
really
really want to
mean
know,
it. Yeah,
and I'm
like,
really going to tell you.
load it up. Yeah, so I realized that through the awesomeness of our being tied to everyone digitally, that I was interacting with people in a way that wasn't feeding me the right stuff. So I don't do that anymore. I don't tweet at people. I don't send messages. If I can come and find you, I want to see you. I want to see your smile, because that feels so good.
I also made a really intentional choice to start having conversations and record them, because that's natural and intimate. I started a podcast about mental health issues, kind of in general, just about the struggles that creative people go through in their lives and how they manage it. And Sarah was
I was
a
like
lovely guest
choked
on
up
my
the whole
show.
time. Yeah.
No, you're great.
Thank you.
I could listen to your voice forever. Speaking voice, singing voice, it's all great.
Thank you.
But I think I was in a really dark place in my own life after some family stuff and just personal struggles. And it was just kind of my way of saying, like, hey, do you deal with this too? And what are your strategies? And how do you work through it? And how does music factor into that? And what's it like to express yourself and then, get up on a stage and sing about, like, your depression or your divorce or all of these things? And I learned so much. And I think the biggest thing I learned is just that everyone was really eager to talk about it, because there's such a stigma around it. And we feel like that's only supposed to be for our, like, best friend that hears about, like, our really serious stuff. And in reality, we're all dealing with something probably, like, all the time. And there's, just shedding light on it and getting it out in the open is so good.
I'm a person, and I think whether you believe it or not, when you ask people and you engage with people and you communicate with people, you're asking for help in a really Minnesota nice kind of way. But I think it's therapeutic, and I think when you connect with people and you really get deep on and vulnerable with the things that are challenging you, and you might hear 15 different perspectives, but every one of those has something that you can say that I'm opposed to or that I really want to embrace, and I can use that to help me get better. And I can use that to help me take a step in the right direction. And I think when you surround yourself with people who, like I said earlier, we all have challenges and we've all felt turmoil, and everybody has some experience that can lend to your experience. And I think that, to me, is therapeutic, and it's help in a way that even without asking for it.
I think we have another question over here. Yes, no? Or are you just holding the mic? Okay. I was like, well, there's a mic. And y'all are really dope. I'm really glad I'm on this panel with you guys because it's great to know that we all feel these same things, and it's beautiful, you know, that we get to learn from each other that what we're doing is right. And now we have to talk about Prince, who obviously helped to open up all of us and all of the world to so many different ways of feeling and being and experiencing life. Could you talk about one thing that he did that like directly or indirectly influenced your work or your life or your family?
I'll start. I grew up in Milwaukee, so not too far from here, but far enough where Prince wasn't as much of my childhood as I think it would have been growing up in Minneapolis or Minnesota. But I've lived here for 20 years, so I also feel like this is part of me also. And I think for Prince, just listening to all other people talk about their Prince experiences, like I feel like we can probably all relate to what everyone has already said. But his privacy to me, I think, is a pretty cool thing because we live in a world of the hypershare, and like whatever you see on social media, like everyone's life is amazing, and like it's hard to remember that. Like we're all just like trying to do our best, and it's not the curated life that you see on social media because that like fucks with your head also. But like you don't have to put it all out there. Like some things you can just keep for yourself and like be proud of and hold close to your heart. And I think like we could all probably stand to remember that a lot more often than we do. And so that's something that has really touches me deeply.
These guys have more to say than I do, but I grew up in Colorado on the Air Force Academy, and when I moved to Minnesota, I was probably the biggest Prince fan, and so I don't know what all these Minnesotans are thinking that like he's theirs. Like for me, it was like, hey, I grew up and it was like the center of my world, right? And I can't tell you how many girls got kissed or taught me to kiss, or I taught to kiss around. I was 12, 13, 14 coming up, you know, before Purple Rain came out, and it was our world, and it was also like we would sit around and listen to the tapes on the boom box out in the middle of the court, right, and listen, and it was just this our own escape from the craziness that was dysfunctional family, and like I really had no clue he was from Minneapolis, right? I was somewhere else, and he was the center of my universe at that time. So, and it was a great experience for me. It was a great escape to stay in my own imagination. So I think that just ties in with what we've talked about a lot today.
I feel like there's always been a purple hue in my mind. The world's always been purple. I have older siblings. There's a 10-year gap between me and my siblings. So when Purple Rain came out, they were high school age. And so that's the soundtrack of my first years on this planet. And then later, when I had some space to come to him on my own, just, flabbergasted by his genius and his mastery, but never intimidated by it. Somehow he was able to play brilliantly and inspire without it seeming like it's some unattainable thing. It's just, I have this gift and I'm here to share it. So, and I also learned that you can play aggressively and beautifully at the same time. And that's my passion in life. It's always going to be ugly and beautiful in cookie form, smashed together, because it makes for better flavor.
I've been trying to figure out the answer to this question for like 6 months. I think Prince was my muse. I think I became a better writer writing about him. Sorry. He worked at such a high level that just watching that, I think, made me want to be excellent. And to know that he read my work is something that's going to push me for a really long time. Yeah. And now I need a new muse, so apply within.
I feel the same. You know, I grew up obviously listening to Prince, and like when I moved to New York, that was the one thing I had. People were like, Sarah White from Minnesota, and I'm like, Prince is from there. They're like, you're cool, you know, like, we'll book you, welcome, you know, come in. It's like, it's almost like he was my uncle or something, you know, in that way. And I was lucky enough, you know, to get one of my CDs to him, and he booked me to come DJ out at Paisley Park, and I spent the whole day trying to figure out how to get the perfect set list together, you know, like my one chance. And there's all these rules, like no cussing, make sure you have all the Prince songs that he's ever had, like all these things. I get there and the doors were all locked and the lights were out. And he changed his mind, you know. And I laughed the whole way home because I just thought like it was worth it just to even like have this chance. And his beautiful assistant drove me over some cash and apologized. And I was like, I don't even care, you know. Like I realized that it's like, it's really like the fact that I got to be alive during the time that he was a physical body on this planet, and like got to learn how to be like a radical, wild, black Afro punk, whatever other word I want to insert into it, symbol that I am, came from being on this planet at the same time as him. So it's a big shoe to fill. Yeah, I think that's, anybody else have any questions or anything to add? No. All right, thank you guys.